Hello, lovely. My name is Gina Lee, and welcome to the Gina podcast. If you've been here before, welcome back. And if this is your first time seeing me, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm so happy you're here. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day so far, and I'm really excited to share this podcast episode with you. Today's podcast is going to be about 22 things I've learned by or at the age of 22. I wanted to make this episode because I'm actually turning 23 next month, and I feel like I've learned a ton about myself and just about life and a lot of life lessons within the past year and also the past few years. The past year has been super impactful, and I think I've learned more this past year than probably any other year in my entire life. So, I am super excited to share this with you guys. Let's get started. The 22 things I have learned about life or life lessons I've learned are going to be separated into a few categories. We will be covering health and wellness, more so focusing on the physical. We're also going to cover mental health, relationships and friendships, and finances as well. Starting with health and wellness. Number one, balance. So, something I have learned probably between, I would say, when I was 16 up until now, but I've really, really embraced it in the past year, is balance. Okay. So I used to do a lot of crash diets or over exercising and working out 3 times a day, whatever, maybe working out for 5 hours and eating super little amounts of calories. But the lack of proper nutrition and an adequate amount of calories led me to binge eating a lot. So I had an issue, unfortunately, for a while with binge eating, and that eventually led to binge eating and purging. So I've dealt with bulimia and anorexia in the past. I think a lot of what caused those issues for me were mainly just poor self esteem, and then seeing all of these different diets online claiming to get you to lose 10 pounds in 3 days. I'm sure a lot of people have heard of the military diet, which is a crash diet, super low in calories, eating hot dogs and ice cream and apples. There's no real scientific method to that. It's just a super low calorie deficit, and that is why it causes you to lose weight, but it's not sustainable. Having a balance of whole foods that are full of nutrients and super good for you and make you feel good, along with indulging in those sweet treats or that junk food every once in a while, is a really good way to be able to stay consistent, but also to enjoy the things you love. I know for me, I've got a super crazy sweet tooth, so having little treats now and then really helps me not to go off the rails, because I found that when I restrict super heavily, I will end up binging and eating at least 15 kids' Halloween candy buckets. Okay. Like, I just go absolutely off the rails with it. By allowing myself to have some balance and a little bit of freedom in my life, it keeps me from over restricting and then binging as a result. Same thing goes for exercise. So I used to work out super, super heavily, and I would do that every single day. I would have one rest day, but it just wasn't something that was sustainable for me. So now I like to listen to my body more and train according to what my body needs. So some days that may be running, Pilates, yoga, weightlifting. I like to incorporate all of those things and just have a good balance of them. That way it is sustainable long term. Number two, consistency. So, this is something that I have struggled with so much because I've had a very all or nothing mindset in the past and still working on it to this day. I never said I was going to be perfect at all these things, they're just things that I've learned. But with consistency, I always viewed it as I have to follow my workout and my diet plan 100%, or there's no point in me doing it. However, there are days when we are not feeling our best, and I know for me, like right around my period, I'm super low energy, and oftentimes lifting really heavy and doing those super extreme workouts can cause me to feel super, super sick and really drain me. Whereas if I'm in a different portion of my cycle, it often does the opposite. So it's important to listen to our bodies. With consistency, it's better to do something than nothing at all. This is something I really struggled with, being all or nothing. But on days where I really do not have the energy and I just feel terrible, I still try to get in some type of movement. And even if that's just walking for 15 or 20 minutes, that consistency is going to provide you with better results than working out super hard for 3 days and then crashing out and not working out for the next 2 weeks. Working out at a more comfortable pace say for 2 days, and then just doing a little bit for a few more days and repeating that cycle is going to provide you with better results than working out super hard and not working out again for 2 weeks. So, on days where I feel really gross, like I said, I will walk around for, say, 15 minutes or do some yoga or do a little bit of resistance training, whatever my body feels like it needs. And then on days where I have more energy and I know that pushing myself isn't going to make me feel sick, I will push myself those days. But letting go of that all or nothing mindset is really helpful when it comes to consistency, because that consistency will provide you with way better results than doing any crash diet or exercise routine that is not going to allow you to be consistent or be able to do it long term. Number three, eating and exercising so you feel the best and perform the best. So, not focusing solely on aesthetics. This is also something I have struggled with super heavily. I have ran myself into the ground and I have participated in these exercise routines and diet plans that I just absolutely hated, but was only doing them for the sole purpose of looking some way aesthetically. And obviously, long term, that doesn't work. But I feel like when you were only focusing on aesthetics rather than I'm doing this to make my body feel good and to progress in the gym or progress in my fitness and become stronger and healthier, you tend to lose that joy that comes with becoming healthier and becoming fitter. I've also found that when I'm training to feel my best and I listen to my body and work out consistently rather than solely focusing on aesthetics, my body looks even better than it did whenever I was focusing solely on the aesthetics portion of things. That may be because the stress load on my body has been reduced, and I've also focused more on eating things that make me feel good and will help me perform, and less restrictive, with focusing on eating and exercising to feel your best and perform your best versus aesthetics. I do believe that is going to be better for longevity because you're going to be listening to your body more and be less prone to injury. Everyone may not be this way, but for me in high school, I got injured all the time because I was not listening to my body. And I got some of the worst shin splints ever as a result, destroyed both of my ankles, and I am still working on fixing them now, years and years later. But it does provide us with better consistency, and doing a wider range of workouts that include mobility does help with longevity. Number four, there are all kinds of different ways to exercise. You do not have to just be running 6 miles on the treadmill or lifting super heavy every day. There is an incredible range of ways you can exercise. Some of the ways I like to exercise outside of that are Pilates and yoga, which do tend to fall more into the workout category of things, but there are an incredible amount of other options that are just super fun to do, don't feel like working out, and they provide you with a great workout and usually a little bit of strength training as well. So, some of my favorites, which I would like to get more into this year, are rock climbing. This is an insane workout, y'all. It works your entire body, and the upper body strength you get from consistently rock climbing is crazy, and it is so much freaking fun. You could also get into dance classes or just dance more at home. That is a great way to get some cardio in, and it is also super, super fun. So I find that sometimes dancing for 15 to 20 minutes is more difficult than me getting on the treadmill and running for that same amount of time, because of the various movements and the abrupt shifts in the movement I'm doing. It is very, very intense, and dancing is a super, super fun way to get some cardio in and for it to not feel like working out. I'm definitely going to be introducing that one into my routine a little bit more because I want to get better at dancing. I used to be more into it when I was younger, and I really want to focus back in on it because, girl, it'll also get you snatched. It'll get you snatched if you do it consistently. You could also get into hiking. That is super enjoyable and great for the mental state. I find that being out in nature makes my mental state so, so much better. People talk about sports sometimes when they're talking about working out, but a lot of times people more so refer to people working out so they can do better in sports, which is super, super great, especially if you are a professional athlete or in college doing some form of athletics. But Doing sports on their own is also a really good workout. I used to play soccer and I really, really enjoyed that, especially if you were playing with a group of friends and have a pretty wide field. You're going to be running back and forth. It's going to be a really good way to get some cardio in and will also help to build up some leg strength. Basketball is another really great one. Swimming's a great workout. Jump roping. There's all kinds of things you can do to work out, and it does not have to be boring. It does not have to be boring. I know that the mainstream media does make working out look like a chore, but sometimes it can be something that is super, super enjoyable. Number five, sleep is so, so important, y'all. The average person needs about 7 to 8 hours of sleep every night. I've heard that it may be a little bit more for women due to our hormone cycles. So I usually try to go around 8.5 hours. That's when I wake up feeling super refreshed and ready to tackle the day. Sleep is incredible because it is basically resetting your body overnight. If we are not sleeping enough, we are going to be more susceptible to things like unhealthy food cravings. And I know that whenever I don't sleep enough, I have a really bad headache. I'm super, super anxious and just really foggy in general. If we are not sleeping properly and sleeping enough, we're not going to see those gains. If we're not sleeping enough, our body cannot build those muscles properly because it is not getting the rest it needs to do so. It's also important to regulate your sleep cycle because that will provide you with better sleep. By having a consistent sleep schedule, your body is going to adapt to that and be ready to fall asleep around the same time every day. Now we are on to section two, which is the mental health portion. Life lesson number 6. Going to therapy or getting help does not make you weak, it makes you stronger. I'm only 22, but even when I was growing up, there was this really big stigma about people getting help and going to therapy, and that it made people weak or that they couldn't deal with their problems by themselves. Which I guess if you're going to therapy or getting help, it's because you do need help dealing with whatever you've got going on. Within the past few years, or maybe 5, 10 years, I think that we've made a big shift as a society in understanding that going to get help does not make you weak. It can really, really benefit your life and help you in the long run. When we neglect our mental health and refuse to go to therapy or get help out of fear of what other people might think, it doesn't mean that we're not still dealing with those same issues. It means that we internalize them and it's going to cause a lot of issues in your life. The amount of strength it takes to share what you're going through with someone and to listen to their feedback and open up and be vulnerable is insane. I don't understand how for so long people have thought that going to therapy makes you weak, but I can guarantee you that it is not easy just to sit there and open up to somebody and listen to their feedback on how you are living your life. In the past, I have had therapists tell me I am absolutely wrong about the way I've handled situations and the way I have dealt with things and treated people. And oh my God, that's like a punch in the stomach, okay? It takes some strength to be able to take some criticism and to utilize that help rather than staying the same and suffering in silence. I feel like a lot of people struggle with maybe the way their parents talk to them and how they treat them and how they communicate. I believe that a lot of that is the result of the stigma behind mental health and the shame a lot of people felt around getting help. I know for my parents' generation, it was not socially acceptable for people to get help, go to therapy, and take accountability for whatever they've got going on in their lives and take it into their own hands and get that help versus now we are a lot more open to that idea and to healing. The shame that was felt during that time, I believe, caused a lot of people to neglect their mental health. And as a result, they internalized those issues. So now the way they communicated may have been skewed from the time they were 4 or 5, and they never got the chance to open up and to figure that out. A lot of people were left to deal with their own struggles and weren't allowed to talk about the things that they were going through. I also know that a lot of people in my parents' generation and just past generations went through some really, really hard shit. Very, very difficult things, very, very traumatizing things. And unfortunately, it did change the way they treated other people, partially due to fear and the way their body and mind reacted to said trauma. So their communication skills and how they treat people in their everyday life and process their emotions was quite skewed. Going to therapy and prioritizing my mental health is the main reason I am still here today. Had I not reached out for help and looked to someone to provide me with professional help, I would have given up. I did give up at one point and, well, I was younger, so I was forced basically by the state to go get that professional help. However, without it, I would not be here today. It has helped me so much in understanding where I stand in a situation and how I've treated people and how they've treated me, and to understand a lot about psychology and the way our brains work and how we treat other people. Number seven, there is nothing wrong with feeling our emotions. We just can't let them control our actions. I, for one, am a very emotional person. I have always had a very heightened sense of emotions. For the longest time, I believed that if I was feeling an emotion, I had to act on it and treat others according to how I was feeling in the moment. And that is the basis for a lot of really shitty communication skills. Processing our emotions and understanding where they're coming from and why we're having them is super, super important versus acting solely on that emotional feeling. Because we all experience different things and have different life circumstances, what someone says to you may affect you more than it would affect someone else, and vice versa. It's important to understand what someone is truthfully saying to you and if you are reacting based off of, say, a past trauma experience. Maybe they're just commenting on something really, really small or giving you some very slight constructive criticism, but you have some past experiences that make that really, really intense for you. Definitely take a moment, take a breather, process what they're saying, and think about, okay, is this really what this person is saying and doing to me? Is this situation as big as I'm making it? Or am I reacting to what someone has said or done in the past and not what is here currently? Feeling our emotions and tending to them is super, super important, because if we don't, we tend to bottle them up and then we might let them out on an innocent bystander who says something a little offhand, and all of a sudden they get 7 years worth of rage that you haven't like let go of or dealt with. So it's important to understand our emotions and to process them rather than just going, I'm angry, I don't want to feel angry, and I'm going to shove this down, or I'm sad and I don't want to feel sad, and you shove it back down. You're not fixing the issue. You're just putting a band aid over top of it. You can put 50 band aids on a wound that needs stitches, but it's not going to make a difference. You're still bleeding out under there. So we have to take the time to process our emotions without being super harsh and rash to the people around us. There's nothing wrong with feeling those emotions. We all have emotions. We're not robots, and that's a beautiful, beautiful thing that we can have sympathy and empathy for other people. Our emotions don't necessarily have to be rational. They are emotions. They do whatever they want. What we need to be rational about is the way we respond to our emotions. So, years ago when I was sad, I might be like, okay, you know what? I'm going to go do this horrible thing to myself and be super self destructive because of this emotion I'm feeling. And now I like to think about, okay, I'm feeling really, really sad and really down today. What am I truthfully feeling? Am I sad because something happened? Am I sad because of my self esteem? What is causing me to feel this heaviness? And by processing that, I can usually figure out what I need to do to get out of the funk rather than acting on it, putting myself into a deeper hole and struggling more as a result. Number eight, even if you are feeling a bit down or kind of shitty, you can still get stuff done. This will build trust within yourself. This goes back to the last thing I was saying, but not letting our emotions control us or ruin our days. Something I have really been working on is building trust within myself, and I do believe that is something that a lot of us lack. Let's say it's a random weekday and you promised yourself you'd do the dishes, but then you got kind of sad. Okay, if you skip it every now and then whenever you're not feeling super great, that's totally fine. But by telling yourself that you are going to do something and not doing it, you are breaking trust that you have with yourself. And for me, the lack of trust I had with myself had an insane impact on my self esteem. Building those two qualities within yourself is going to help your self esteem tremendously. Take it from me. And that's not to say that if you've given yourself this crazy to-do list and you went way in over your head, that you're a failure and that you shouldn't trust yourself at all. Of course, the better option is to be more reasonable about the things you can get done and what you have prioritized for yourself. It's okay to make some small mistakes and to not complete everything that you say you're going to do all the time. The important thing is to not fall into the cycle of self hatred and the lack of self trust. Say you have a chore chart and you have all these chores you're supposed to do for the week. You miss the first one, you feel really shitty about yourself, and then you skip the second one, and it just keeps going and going and going. If you skip that first day, make sure you do it the next day. Don't let yourself fall into that pattern because it is going to affect your self esteem, or it affected the hell out of mine. Number nine, you don't have to be on medication forever. It can be temporary. As someone who has a plethora of mental health issues, as well as a decent little amount of physical issues, I have been on all kinds of medications and a lot of different psychiatric medications. And what I will tell you about that is there's nothing wrong with reaching out and getting help and going to see a psychiatrist if you are suffering with things that are making your life debilitating. We go through time periods in our lives which may be harder than other times. So if you are suffering with really severe anxiety right now and it's something that you haven't had to deal with in the past, but it has been incredibly debilitating, there is nothing wrong with going to see a psychiatrist and getting on a medication for that, even if it is just temporary. I have been on a plethora of medications, and I was on one that was pretty strong, but I only had to take it every once in a while. And when I was going through this really, really dark time, I had to take it quite a bit more often and very consistently in order to stay sane and to not that medication helped me a lot during that time. However, I have not had to take that medication in over a year. In over a year. And it was something I was having to take all of the time because of the time period I was in and the stuff that I was going through. I couldn't deal with what I was going through, and it was incredibly debilitating and made my day to day life very difficult. So I reached out, got a medication that helped me for a little bit, and I've been off of it for over a year. I only ended up having to take it for a short period of time. I was able to kind of reshape things in my life. But without that medication, I don't know what I would have done because of the state of my nervous system at the time. I also have a very mild anxiety medication I take every once in a while if I need it. It is not something, thankfully, that I have to take all the time, but I can go ahead and tell you there's been times where I have to take it every single day for a month. And then there's times where I forget about it for 6 months. Unless you have some kind of mental health condition that requires you to stay on a medication to regulate things within your brain, like for me, for example, I have bipolar disorder, so I will most likely be on vacation for the rest of my life. But for people that are going through really, really difficult times, it is absolutely possible to take a medication and get off of it. That's coming from someone who's taken a ton of medications in the past, bringing it a little bit back to therapy by going to therapy and working on yourself. Taking that medication for a short period of time may help to make things easier to open up, talk to the therapist, and just live your day to day life without it being so debilitating. If you are working on yourself and are able to get to a place where you don't feel like you need the medication because you've figured a lot of stuff out and dealt with a lot of issues or struggles you were going through, it is absolutely possible to stop taking that medication. Number 10, mental and physical health go hand in hand. This is something that made me a little bit upset and angry whenever I realized how true this was in my own life and also in the lives of a lot of people around me. We can work as hard as we want to on our mental health, but if we are not also taking care of our physical health and eating to feel good and moving around and taking care of our bodies, it is likely that our mental health will not improve to the capacity at which we want. If you are just now starting to take care of your mental health, absolutely, you are going to see a really big shift in that. But it is important to take care of your body as well as your mind. Those two things are connected. Eating great nutrient dense foods are going to provide your body with those vitamins that have a direct impact on your mental health and your energy levels. Things like vitamin B6, vitamin B12, as well as vitamin D and K all do play a very big role in your mental health and your energy levels. So it's important to take care of your body as well. Exercise also releases dopamine into the body, which is one of our feel good chemicals. Exercise is also going to reduce stress levels and improve sleep quality, as well as just benefiting your general well being. We're on to section number 3, which is relationships and friendships. Number 11, you need to respect yourself and your boundaries for other people to respect them as well. If you are constantly treating yourself like shit and not doing the things for yourself that you say you're going to, other people are going to see that and take that as an opportunity to treat you the same way that you're treating yourself. By providing yourself with kindness and respecting yourself as well as your boundaries, other people are likely to mirror that. They're not going to take it as an invitation to treat you like shit because they know that you don't stand for that. If you uphold your values and provide yourself with respect, people are not going to even try to run all over you. And if they do try to run all over you, they're going to see very quickly that that shit does not work and that you will not stand for that. So by treating yourself the way you want to be treated, other people are going to start doing the same because they see that's what you stand for and what you want in your life. That's not to say that you're not going to have some shitheads who treat you like trash every now and then, but they're going to see pretty quickly that you do not put up with that and they're likely to move along, or they'll be really easy to weed out of your life if you are providing yourself with that respect and kindness. Number 12, if a relationship or friendship is comfortable, it does not necessarily mean that it is beneficial or good for either of you anymore. This is something I have dealt with a lot. I actually talked about this in episode 3 of this podcast series. I will link that video at the end of this video, but I was talking about outgrowing people, what that looks like, and how to know when to let people go. It's important to evaluate your friendships and relationships and whether or not they are good for both people anymore. Oftentimes, we stay with people just because we're comfortable, not because we're happy or enjoying the relationship or friendship anymore. By weeding people out of your life that do not respect you and uphold the same values and morals as you do, you are going to have a lot more space in your life for your own self growth. Number 13, you have to consistently put effort into your relationships and friendships and always be showing them that you love and care for them. A lot of people, when they get into a relationship or maybe they've been friends with someone for a really, really long time, they tend to stop putting in effort and showing the other person that they care about them. In a past relationship, this is something I kind of dealt with where the effort was only shown right at the beginning until a label was put on it. And I didn't understand why everything had kind of died out so quickly and the care and appreciation I had for said person had died very, very quickly. There's more to that, of course, but that's a relevant kind of statement for what we're talking about here. We should always be making an effort to show the people in our lives that we care about them. If we want them to stay there, we need to show them how much we love and appreciate them. I'm not saying you have to bring home 10 different bouquets of flowers every week, but just doing small things and letting the people in your life know that you care about them is going to build that sense of love and trust in that relationship or friendship. Number 14, listen to your gut. This is something that a lot of people say, and I used to think it was really silly, but I believe there's more to it than just having a hunch. I think we all have some little sense of intuition or whatever you want to call it. If you have been feeling for a long time that a relationship or friendship should be ended, I think you should probably do it. I think there is rhyme and reason for those gut feelings. There are times, of course, where we have these emotions or feelings come up, and sometimes it's best to not act on them. If you got into an argument with a partner, and during that heightened state with those heightened emotions, the first thing that goes through your head is, I'm going to break up with them, or I should break up with them. I'm not necessarily saying to lean into that, but if it's something you've been thinking about for a while and is somewhat of a gut feeling, I would recommend listening to it because every time I have listened to that gut feeling, my life has improved so, so much, and it has helped me grow so much as a person. Number 15, it is better to have a small group of people in your life that you love and care for deeply versus having a large group of somewhat friends, maybe acquaintances that you don't resonate with that well or don't care for that much. When I was younger, I used to think that having a super large group of friends or acquaintances would make me happy, but I often found that I felt even more lonely in these spaces when I was hanging out with these large groups of people, with people I was not super great friends with and did not resonate well with. You're going to exhaust yourself mentally trying to please all of those people, and oftentimes we're pleasing them just because we want them to like us, and that is so incredibly exhausting. By having a small group of friends or people in your life that you can trust and go to when things are difficult, you are going to be provided with a lot more security and you will feel that love so much more. Prioritize people you really care for in your life rather than focusing on building up the biggest group of friends. I promise you that it will be way more rewarding than having that large group of friends that you don't care that much for. We are on to section number 4, which is finances. I'm very excited to talk about this one because I do believe that I am pretty well rounded about the way I approach finances. I also didn't grow up with a lot of money, so I didn't have things just kind of handed to me. So I think that did help to shape my perspective on finances. This also drove me to approach finances in a different way and to research more about what I can do to set myself up for the future. Number 16, it's not what you make, but what you save. If you don't save a decent portion of the money that you are making, you're not going to see the return for the future. There's nothing wrong with indulging and treating yourself every once in a while. It is important to take care of yourself and to provide yourself with some enjoyment. But if you are spending most to all of the money that you are making, the amount of effort you are putting in to make that extra income, it doesn't really end up being worth it as much. By saving your money, you can invest in those larger things that you want, that you have been dreaming of, as well as investing in yourself and in your career. If we stop spending so much money on all the little bullshit items and put that towards our future, you're going to get a much bigger return and be a lot happier in the long run. Number 17, there is no shame in looking for a coupon, discount code, or just a lower price in general for an item. You should not feel shame ever in prioritizing yourself and your finances. I know there's this whole culture of people, and this is a very large majority of the people today, who spend way out of their means and buy all these things just to look good in front of other people. But when it comes down to it, they're not making their rent on time or their car payments. And that makes me sad that as a society, we have prioritized looking rich and looking lavish versus saving money and putting that towards your future. In searching for items at a lower cost, it is also important to not sacrifice quality. Think about it this way. If you are purchasing an item that costs $50 and that item will last you for 10 years versus purchasing a $2 knockoff item that you have to repurchase every month because it keeps breaking. Over time, choosing that quality versus the $2 item is going to benefit you significantly. In searching for discounts, I also want to mention if you can find a discount grocery store, babe, that will save you so much freaking money. Speaking from personal experience, I go to the discount grocery store for most of my groceries, and it saves me probably $200 to $300 a month. I am not kidding. I know that different areas have different options, but if you can find one where the food is still really great quality and obviously in date, that is a little bit of a problem sometimes with discount grocery stores. So you do have to watch them for that. But if you can find one that's reliable and offers groceries at a discounted cost, that is going to help you significantly in saving money. And it has for me. I eat quite a bit, so I have to go to the grocery store quite often. But let's say I'm saving $200 to $300 per month. If you put that into perspective, that is $2,400, y'all. $2,400, y'all. That's absolutely insane. Number 18, those little F it purchases really add up. It's really easy to look at purchases that are $5, $10, $15, $20 as no big deal, right? It's really easy to do that. If you calculate how much money per month you are spending on those little F it purchases, you will wind up with a pretty substantial amount. That is, of course, if you are making a lot of those little purchases. A lot of people only view large purchases as being somewhat devastating to our bank accounts. However, those small, unnecessary, and consistent purchases that we make, oftentimes they add up more than those large splurges we make on items that we really need and are beneficial for us in the long term. I really do recommend calculating how much money you're spending on these little purchases. The purchases I would include in this category are things that you don't really need, or maybe a replica of something that you already have that is not really going to benefit you in any way, shape, or form. For example, if you were always going to get fast food or spending $10, $15 on Starbucks every day when you could be making it at home, spending less than a quarter of the cost, I think that those go into that F it purchase category because they are not necessary and you can make them cheaper at home. I would also include little impulse buys that do not genuinely benefit your life. For me, something I struggle with is buying little impulsive makeup things or new outfits that I don't really need because I have enough clothes to clothe probably 15 families for a couple months. I'm not even kidding you guys. I have so many clothes. Adding those into that category and calculating those as well. And anything else that you don't really need, but you were just purchasing for mainly that little hit of dopamine that we get whenever we make those F it purchases. Number 19, always read the terms and conditions as well as the fine print. Whether it is a lease, a car payment plan, or you are going with a new credit card company, it is super important to look into the terms and conditions before signing off on anything that could damage you financially. Make sure to research interest rates, especially. Reading and understanding interest rates can prevent you from paying double for the item you're purchasing or going onto a payment plan for. A lot of credit card companies, car dealerships, and other places like to kind of hide those interest rates so you don't see them. But over time, that interest accumulates and you end up paying a significant amount more than what you bargained for. Let's not even get into if you miss a payment. Now we're on to number 20, and we are going to be talking about credit cards. Credit cards can be a really useful tool for you. Building up your credit score can provide you with a ton of wonderful opportunities. This is more so referring to things like leasing an apartment or getting a car. By having that higher credit score, they're often going to give you a lower interest rate on, say, a car, and maybe your payment plan is significantly lower as well. By having a good credit score, you're likely to not be spending as much money on things that do require you to use a credit card. I know for me, having a good credit score allowed me to pay a super, super low security deposit on the apartment I am currently renting. If I had had a poor credit score, I may not have even gotten the apartment, but at the very least, my security deposit would have been significantly higher. If you are deciding to get a credit card, it is super important to check out what the interest rates are and also to make sure that you are paying that credit card off all the time. So some people say that if you leave a balance on a credit card, it is a little better for your credit score. However, the risk of not making a payment on time or having a large amount build up on my credit card prevents me from doing that. Personally, I have a really great credit score, especially to be 22, and I have always made sure to pay that card off pretty much as soon as the purchase is made. Make sure to research the points you get from the credit card and what kind of cash back you get, and look into what kind of credit card you are looking for the lifestyle that you live. Some credit cards are going to be better for people who do a lot of grocery shopping, whereas some are going to be more geared towards people who do a lot of flying and traveling. Cashback that credit cards build up is absolutely wonderful. I've been able to make so many purchases just because of the amount of cashback I get from my card. The last thing I want to say about credit cards is maybe hold off on getting one if you are not super diligent about your finances. My rule of thumb is if I don't have enough money in my checking account for it, then I can't put it on a credit card because credit cards are not free money. You have to pay that back regardless. If I want something that's super lavish and expensive and I don't have it in my checking account, that just means you don't have enough money for it. Having a credit card is not the ticket to getting these super expensive things you want. It's just a good way to build up a credit score, and also you can get benefits like cash back and different kind of rewards and offers on things from the credit card company. Number 21, always put yourself first. Stop doing things that put yourself at other people's disposal and start thinking about what you really want for your life. This is your life to live, and I want you to make the absolute best out of it and put yourself first. That's not to say you should be selfish and not care about anybody else, but if it is going to be harmful for you, then I would not recommend participating in it or doing the said thing for that person. Make sure that you are always the person you are thinking about first. Number 22, don't let other people or society define you. Like I said before, this is your life to live, and there is no reason to let society or other people tell you what to do with it. As long as you are taking care of yourself and are flourishing, that is what matters. Of course, don't screw people over to get there, but if you are doing something that might be a little bit out of societal standards or what society says you should be doing, screw them. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day. People are going to try to hold you down just because they don't want to get out of the box themselves and they're scared to do so. All right, y'all, those are the 22 life lessons I have learned by the age of 22. I hope you all enjoyed, and I love each and every one of you so, so much. If you'd like to see more content like this, let me know, leave me a comment, and if you want to follow my socials, I link them in the description down below. I love you, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.